Economic development happens when money comes from outside a region into the region.
It's our job to serve people and to make their lives better.
I spend a lot of time in Garfield County, Enid in particular.
That's probably one of the hardest things, to get the good title.
Everyone deserves help.
And he's been very instrumental in trying to make this deal work out.
You're basically self-insuring 100% of the loss.
Now having a new measurement tool to make certain we're ready.
My old friend.
Some girls have even led adoption drives for local rescue agencies.
I want to try to focus on the things out of life that are positive.
City Connections begins right now.
Hello again and welcome to City Connections. I'm Steve Kime. Thank you for joining me. We're at the Cherokee Strip Community Foundation offices. And my very special guest today is Mary Stallings. Mary.
Nice to have you.
Okay, thanks
Welcome.
for allowing us to come into your nice remodeled former radio station building to the Cherokee Strip Foundation building. Thank you very much. So right off the bat, just tell us, what is the foundation all about? People see the name, they hear the name, but what is the foundation?
The Cherokee Strip Community Foundation is a 501c3. It's a nonprofit entity that helps the community for charitable needs, and it's all kinds of needs.
I believe your physical address is 324 North Van Buren. People drive by it all the time if they go north and south on Van Buren. Tell us a little bit about the remodeling effort here, because this building had a previous life before the Cherokee Strip Foundation.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, it did. This used to be the radio station. A lot of people in Enid remember it as the radio station. Then several other people owned it, and then Jeff Eaton created a insurance office here. And so he was looking to build just a little bit farther north on Van Buren, and we discovered that it might be available, and it seemed to meet all our needs as far as an office. And we were in a small space at the nonprofit center, and so it gave us a lot more room and a lot more visibility.
Sure, and it has a community feel to it for me, because you see some of the photo behind you, or the portrait behind you of Boomer, and then off to our left, your right, is a large conference room where I know you have a variety of meetings in there, so it's very community-minded, allows people in the community to use it. Well, let's go back to the beginning on the foundation. When and why and how was it created?
Well, I guess I'd have to start with Kelly Champlin. She and Joel came back from Seattle, and they had seen what community foundations were doing on the coast. And so she decided to apply for a 501c status, a public charity status, and she created it, put together a board, and they started what was called Excellence for Enid. And her goal was to raise $100,000 and give 3 different nonprofits $25,000 each and cover her cost. And the group did that. They were very successful. $25,000 went to the Adventure Quest project at Leonardo's. $25,000 went to Enid Public Schools, and $25,000 went to the Garfield County Child Advocacy. So her project definitely helped 3 nonprofits with a good footing.
Excuse me, Mary, what was the time frame for this? When did this all begin?
That was probably mid-90s.
Okay.
Maybe 96 or 7. So
it's amazing how fast the calendar goes. It was just a few years ago, and then you do the math a bit longer.
Wise.
Well, according to your website, it appears that there's at least 57, maybe more, nonprofits that you assist and help. So when you read that statement, can you explain what does that mean, that the Cherokee Strip Foundation is assisting 57 plus nonprofits?
Yes, the mission of the Community Foundation is to help with development and administration of endowments for the quality of life in our area. And our region is 16 counties in northwest Oklahoma. Different individuals, businesses, corporate, all can create endowments. And we'll talk a little bit more about endowments, I'm sure, as we go. But we have probably 221 endowments, and they are set up for a beneficiary. So the first type of fund is a designated fund. So if someone wanted to do an endowment for Leonardo's, they could set up a designated named endowment, and that fund would be there for perpetuity.
I'm familiar with a foundation group in Oklahoma City, and they set aside like May of every year to just start distributing funds, whatever. So for the Cherokee Strip Community Foundation, is there a designated time, or is it just 12 months out of the year, or how does that work when it comes to distributing
It depends
money?
on the type of fund.
Okay.
Designated funds, donor advised funds, other funds are done at the end of the year. So we calculate the distribution on a 3-year rolling average as of June 30th each year, and then we distribute those funds in December. And it's really fun because it's usually about the middle of December, and we have a grant reception, and this year we were able to do it here in the new building. And people come from all over the state. They might be from Oklahoma City, but they serve clients in Northwest Oklahoma. And they tell about their grant, the need that they have, and then they, and before the reception is over, people are collaborating, talking, and trying to figure out how they can work together.
Well, I've been to some of those events in the past where they hand out money, and yeah, that's an exciting time when people start getting a big check. Well, Mary, your role is executive director, so tell us a little bit about your role and what you do, if you would, please.
Well, I was the first executive director, and so I kind of did everything. I helped find an office when the Community Foundation decided to hire a director. That I was hired, and then so we found an office, and that was in the old conference center. Then I worked with the board. The board had been working together prior to a director being hired, and so they had written all the bylaws, did all the things that they needed to do to get the nonprofit off the ground. I came in and I started talking to people. At that time, the Sisters of Mercy had sold the hospital from not-for-profit to for-profit, so they put up a 1.8 challenge match. And it was a 2-year challenge match. So the board was very active in going out. And then the nonprofit stepped up, and they actually helped build their own endowments, and they would bring endowments into the Community Foundation. So we met that match in a 2-year time period, and we were off and running. So it was about 3.6.
Well, you've described your role, and you wear several hats as executive director to make things happen. Let me back up a little bit and say, why are you involved? We'll get away from the job title stuff, but from a heart perspective, if you will, why are you involved?
Well, I had trust experience. Out of college, I worked at First National in Oklahoma City in the trust department. We moved to Enid, and there really wasn't that opportunity. But I really have, Enid has always been good to us, and I felt like it was time that I wanted to do something with the nonprofit world. I was excited because I had been on lots of boards, and I knew that there was a lot of potential in our community, and when they talked about having a community foundation, it was something that really interested me. So.
Very good. Our special guest today on City Connections is Mary Stallings, and we're happy to be in the offices of the Cherokee Strip Community Foundation, and we appreciate the opportunity to be in the facility today. It's very impressive, and we're going to talk a little bit about endowments, some funds, how you can be involved, and that's all with Mary right after this. Thank you for staying with us on City Connections. Welcome back to City Connections. Thank you for staying with us today. My very special guest is Mary Stallings, and we're at the Cherokee Strip Community Foundation offices today. Mary, you've discussed about your role as executive director and really the beginnings of the foundation and so forth. Tell us a little bit about your trustees and the staff so people will get a better understanding of what the Cherokee Strip Community Foundation is all about.
Well, I'm a little partial, but I think I probably have the best board of trustee that there is.
Good boards are hard to come by,
They
right?
are very hard. And I think that people really appreciate what they're doing on this board, and it's not hard to find good people. We have lots and lots of amazing people in our area, and we have one board member, Cheryl Benbrook from Woodward, and we're hoping to get more board members from Alva and Kime. We serve that 16 counties, so our board is truly amazing. It's made up of accountants, CPAs, it's made up of hospital administrators, because our public charity serves all those areas, health, education, and these are amazing people, and when they get together, it's so amazing what they can do.
I'm glad you mentioned about a trustee from Woodward, because Mary, this interview will air, of course, on local Enid television, but we live stream different programs around the globe, so there'll be people in Kansas, New Jersey, you name it, Alaska, watching this interview by chance, if you will. But tell us a little bit more. When we think the Cherokee Strip Community Foundation, we're thinking Enid, Oklahoma only, if we want to be narrow-minded about it. But you said there was like 16 counties or so of your impact. Why is it the 16 counties, and can it be more?
Well, it can be. Like Oklahoma City serves the greater area of Oklahoma City. Tulsa's the same, the greater area of Tulsa. There's another community foundation called Community Foundations of Oklahoma, and they serve where there's a lot of a Bank First or an area, and so they're statewide. But it used to be regional, very regional, and serve an area. And so we have what's called a competitive grant cycle. And so we've been giving grants to Woodward and Alva and all different areas, and now they want to be part of it, and they're creating endowments here for their area. We've had people in Enid create for their public school foundations, and so it's really, they have the same needs we do in Enid, and so we work really hard to try to provide those grants in that area.
In preparation for our visit today, I took a look at your website. It's very informative. One thing that caught my eye was the number of funds, 221 funds associated with the Cherokee Strip Community Foundation. So what kind of funds are these? What the different kinds? If there's 221, to me, that's significant.
When we talk about endowment funds, the minimums is $10,000. So a person or a corporate is giving $10,000 to start a fund. The corpus of that fund is to be there for perpetuity, and that we only use the income off of those funds to make distributions. The 221 funds cover a whole gamut, almost with 60 in our immediate area. Almost, you think of almost every nonprofit, and they have endowments for their beneficiary. The YMCA, Leonardo's, Garfield County Child Advocacy, they're all out there, and they're working real hard to build their endowments for the future. It's their hope to sustain their programs.
I'm very impressed with what you've shared so far this morning. We already have the phone ringing, wanting to get their fund started at $10,000. At $10,000, so just keep ringing. So, $25 million in assets, and in layman's terms, tell us how the foundation is impacting Enid.
Okay.
I'm sure that's going to be a long answer, but take your time with it. It's got to be making a difference.
Yeah. Well, what we know at the Community Foundation, everybody has a story. And everybody in this area has worked very hard to help their community, but the Community Foundation is an opportunity to help for the future. And I think they've realized that. One time, a couple of doctors, Greg Walton and Dr. Hoffman, saw that there was a real need for nursing education. They could not find enough nurses to have nurses in their doctor's offices and at the hospital. So they came in and they raised money, and from the hospitals, from the doctors, and they have quite a endowment for Northwest Rural Health, and scholarships were available, and so a lot of people went through those scholarships. The money was there for them to go to nursing school, and once that was covered, then they came back and we have something called variance power in those endowments, and so they needed equipment at the colleges so they could go ahead. Their equipment got old and they had to replace it. So there's a lot about endowments that the board, they can go back to the board and there can be a variance. If one of them ceases to exist, then it could be varied to like a high school program or a college program. So that's our agreements that make up the endowments. We talk about the arts, and in Woodward, their arts theater is in the center of Woodward, and it's so important to them, but their marquee had been out forever. It had been out for a long, long time. So they wrote a grant, and they received one of our largest grants, $10,000, to rework their marquee. It was a very creative grant application, and they said the lights will now be on in Woodward because the marquee will burn again. So there's all kinds of impacts. They provide all types of resources for the nonprofits. The symphony had a big program that they linked with Carnegie Music and things, and I think it's just endless, the opportunities that endowments afford in our area.
You've done a great job explaining some of the difference-making opportunities that the foundation makes. Well, we're at the end of our interview, but I have one more question for you, and you've been very gracious with your time today. And the $10,000 question is, how does a person reach out to you? How do they get involved? They see this interview and they're nudging the husband or someone and they say, you know, we needed to be doing something. We need an endowment or whatever. What would you say to them, and how can they reach out to you, Mary?
Well, it's simple. I think you gave the address at 324 North Van Buren. It's on the corner of Elm and Van Buren. You can park in front or in the back and just walk in and we'll sit down and talk about it. Or you can call and we can set an appointment if that works better. So it's 580-234-3988.
Mary Stallings, congratulations on the good work that you do. And
thank you.
It's got to be very rewarding knowing that you're making a difference in the lives of many people.
Okay. I'd love to tell you more again.
Okay.
Another time.
We'll come back another time, and we'll get an update on the difference that you're making in the Enid community and the surrounding 16 counties. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on City Connections today. I hope you've enjoyed my visit with Mary Stallings at the Cherokee Strip Community Foundation. It's all about giving away money. It's all about making a difference in the lives of many other individuals. Thanks for watching. Until next time, make it a great day.